Hey guys, Kristen here with Christine for another very special mini-sode on our Patreon. We're doing something a little bit different. Usually we like to explore different facets of the supernatural fandom here, but we're exploring Supernatural and Buffy.
Because we always do what Kristen wants to do. No, I'm just kidding.
Because
It's
I
just that I
can't shut up
know
about
that you.
Buffy.
I just knew that you would love to do this, and I was down to revisit Buffy, so it works.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like in the first episode that we ever did, right? Like of our podcast, like why you should watch Supernatural. I think I did talk a little bit about it and was like, it would be really interesting to kind of look at Supernatural in the context of coming from Buffy and stuff like that. But we never really did that, and I'm glad that we didn't because Supernatural is its own thing. There's already so much to talk about with just the episodes we're seeing.
Clearly.
Yeah. But I think, we've kind of showed either in that episode or other episodes where we've read interviews with Kripke that Supernatural was definitely I wouldn't say inspired by Buffy because, he had his own inspirations stemming from childhood, but it was definitely an influence on Supernatural. And so I see them as like a sister brother show almost, you know.
It's easy to
Uh,
see. I mean, with all the supernatural creatures too, which is our topic today, but that's a
yeah.
huge one. There's so much to compare. Um, there are a lot of likenesses.
Yeah. And this, series of episodes that might occur here or there, they are going to be multiple episodes because it's not like you can just talk about Supernatural and talk about Buffy and just like compare them. It's like we're going to be looking at different facets of each and comparing them. And so yeah, today we're going to be looking at supernatural creatures, which obviously as fantasy shows, it's a big theme in both of those universes. Um, but totally different. Like
Yeah.
totally different in each of them. I don't know if you saw the same with your picks, but
No, it was interesting. I felt like for one of them, they were kind of more similar. And then another creature, it was like some similarities, but also, whoa, that's different.
yeah. So the creatures we're going to be covering today are actually vampires, demons, witches, and werewolves.
Yep.
Woofs. Woofs.
Woofers.
But first, we're going to talk about vampires. Now, vampires is like a major thing in Buffy.
It's in the
And
name.
actually, it's in the fucking name. Buffy is a vampire slayer, not a werewolf slayer, but a vampire
Or a
slayer.
general slayer. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, she is kind of a general slayer, but she's not called that.
Yeah, that's true. She kind of is. She fights all sorts of monsters.
Yeah, does it all.
But vampires actually appear in every single episode of Buffy and Angel, with the exception of episodes Witch, The Pack, I Robot You Jane, the Puppet Show, Inca Mummy Girl, which are all season 1 episodes there. Living Conditions and Fear Itself, which are season 4 episodes. But otherwise, they have appeared in all season 3 episodes of Buffy and all of seasons 5, 6, and 7.
Is that how many seasons there were? I couldn't remember if it was 8 or 7.
Yes, there were 7.
Okay.
And then Angel, it's kind of like Angel is a vampire and he's like our main guy in Angel. So yeah, he's obviously there's always at least one vampire present.
It's interesting that the season with the fewest number of vampires is season 1, like starting out.
I know. You would think that
there would be one in every episode or something.
Yeah, or they would focus on just fighting vampires. But I guess they just were like, let's mix it up. Let's have different things happening.
Yeah.
And just a quick correction to myself, Inca Mummy Girl is actually season 2. But
Ah,
yeah,
how dare you?
I know. I'm so sorry. But Supernatural, we first learn about vampires in Dead Man's Blood, which is a season 1 episode. And I remember talking about how like surprised we were because Kripke had actually said, and I read this in some production notes, that he did not want to do vampires. Like he wanted to stay away from it because he wanted to differentiate the show from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But they were like, we got to have vampires. I mean, that's like a staple creature nowadays, so we got to do it.
It makes
And so
sense. I don't know how you would have that supernatural world without some vampires thrown in.
yeah. Yeah, of course. And John was really the one that kind of introduced us to the lore. As he's speaking to Sam and Dean, he says, most vampire lore is crap. A cross won't repel them, sunlight won't kill them, and neither will a stake to the heart. But the bloodlust, that part's true. They need fresh human blood to survive. They were once people, so you won't know it's a vampire until it's too late. So I mean, immediately what jumps out is sunlight won't kill them, and neither will a stake to the heart.
Yeah.
So that's like
Two things that
already
are classic in Buffy.
yes, and most vampire lore, but also like Buffy's whole thing is her main weapon of choice is a stake,
Mm-hmm.
which seems kind of
Mr. Pointy.
silly. Mr. Pointy, that's right. That's what she calls it. um, So, as far as appearance for both of them, they're pretty similar. Vampires appear to be normal humans. And I guess the differences, though, are that in Supernatural, they have retractable teeth, which descend at the vampire's will. So, um, that's very different. So, they can like hide that aspect of themselves, actually.
Mm.
And it's actually funny because I'm not going to get into True Blood, but I could. But I mean, True Blood is all about vampires. Our main protagonists are vampires, and that's kind of the function of their fangs as well. It's like they descend whenever they're going to need them, essentially. Um, but with Buffy's very unique in that the vampires have some like special facial alterations that happen. So when a vampire is about to feed, they all of a sudden get this like really gross wrinkly face.
Yep. It's like a mask.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, weird looking. I guess supposed to look demonic, and they have like pronounced brow ridges and golden eyes. And then that's when their teeth appear, but along with this like weird face. Um, and I think I like mentioned that they actually this was inspired from the movie Lost Boys, which I think the last time we talked about that, Christine, you had not seen The Lost Boys.
No, I had not. But what's really funny, did you see the text I sent you earlier? Or a Facebook message?
No.
Girl, the guy who plays the sexy man saxophone is literally coming to Austin, I think, with like a famous singer's backup band.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Sexy sax man from Lost Boys.
If you have not seen The Lost Boys, there's a scene where there's like some ridiculous concert in this Venice Beach looking area. And there is this man wearing nothing but like chains.
Yes.
Playing a saxophone. It's the hottest. It might be the hottest thing.
And I think he's in like spandex tights. Yeah, they're going to be with the Tina Turner band.
How funny.
So hilarious. I know. So if you're interested, August 24th, Sexy Sax Man. Yeah.
Oh man. Great movie though. But it's I don't know, what do you think about the faces? It's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird, especially now. I mean, I wonder if it was just kind of like part of the times, not a lot of CGI or, great special effects, but the faces now seem so fake. I guess just because like they don't move. Like once they have that face, it's like the actor has a hard time talking, their face doesn't
Yeah.
move. It's very extreme.
It is. And I think I've read that the reason they went with that is because they wanted the vampires to really look like demonic and to
They
be,
do.
yeah, yeah, they totally do. They wanted them to be different from Buffy, so that there was a clear force. Even if you're not listening to the dialogue, you can tell, okay, this is a bad person.
Yeah.
Basically, they're not all pretty like Edward Cullen, right?
Right. They're not sparkly.
uh, so in addition to like when they're hungry, though, they can show this face when they're just angry and also when they're sexually aroused.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we do. We do hear that. Um, and I forgot this little tidbit, but when I was doing my research, um, apparently there's an episode where one of our characters on Angel is examining a dead body. She's doing an autopsy, and she's able to determine the sex of the vampire based on the size and depth of the fang wound.
Whoa.
So, I mean, she's our smart character, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So, as far as origin, um, a lot of the information that I have on Supernatural, we're going to be learning as we go along. And I'm just going to be touching briefly on them because, I mean, we're going to learn it anyways, but also I don't want to give anything away. Um, but
Thank you.
apparently there is, yeah, apparently there is like a first vampire in Supernatural, and so we're gonna learn a little bit about that in season 6 and 7. So
Awesome.
that should be really interesting.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. Um, but with Buffy, so with Supernatural, everything, because of the way that the show is going, right? Everything's really going to be stemming from the Bible stories. So they're going to take that as their core concept and then change the storylines around it, which is very fascinating. But that's mainly where everything's coming from. And it's funny because like similar to Supernatural, like True Blood, the first vampire was Lilith. So it's
Oh,
like, yeah, they kind of go that same route as well. Buffy, it's a little bit more vague. Giles, I think he talks about this. It has to be the first episode. I'm not sure. But he says the last demon to leave this reality fed off a human, mixed their blood. He was a human form possessed, infected by the demon's soul. He bit another and another. And so they walk the earth, feeding, killing some, mixing their blood with others to make more of their kind.
I think he did just say that in episode 1. I just watched it, but I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. And so there's this, it's funny because it's kind of like Lord of the Rings. There's this idea that there was once a world, an earth, where all these monsters just like walked around and they just, they lived here. And then for whatever reason, they were kind of forced underground and so just kind of emerge here and there. Um, and so that's kind of what this is suggesting, that there were these like pure demons that now are gone, but basically like vampires are just a mix of human and demon. Um, and we see that significantly with in different examples. Angel, for example, several instances in Buffy, and then in Angel, he is like comes into contact with some sort of spell or some sort of alternate reality. And all of a sudden, his self splits into two. And so we have human angel and then we have demon angel. And he turns into like a full on fledged demon with horns and all of that. And that's supposed to represent his vampiric side, his demonic side.
That was really
But
awesome.
together, yeah, but together it's just a vampire. So it's a little different. Um,
But fascinating. I love that.
yeah. Um, and the as far as diet, like the same for both of them. Obviously, human blood, but they can drink animal blood to survive. Angel likes to drink pig's blood.
Mm-hmm.
He likes it in his coffee. Uh, and the hierarchy of vampires is a little bit different, though. Also, um, the vampires in Supernatural really like to be in nests. So they like to stick together in groups. They usually have a leader who is the eldest, who, usually turn the others and just has them all together. Whereas in Buffy, they prefer working alone, though sometimes in packs. And when they are in packs, the leading vampire is known as the Master, which the Master is our protagonist, or I'm sorry, our antagonist of season 1. Um, and or they can have a dominant couple, like Spike and Drusilla are kind of like the king and queen of their pack, you
Yeah.
know. um, and I like it there too because in some vampire bloodlines, and we see that with our main vampires that we see, they have a tradition of choosing new names for themselves after being sired. So Angel, when alive, was his name was Liam, but when he was sired, he became Angelus, and then eventually became Angel. Angelus, because there's this whole thing with Angel. I could get into it, but I won't. Um, when he because in Buffy, it's very clear that they don't have a soul. Vampires do not have a soul.
Right.
That's not a thing. Angel's special because he has a soul. But when he is unensouled, if that's a word, um, he is, suddenly becomes a different person, and his name changes to Angelus because that's who he used to be when he had no soul, essentially. So names are a really, really important part of being a vampire. Um, but in Supernatural, I mean, we just had like Johnny, Kate, the vampire. I don't know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't any like special names or anything like that.
No,
Yeah.
it was pretty
Um,
generic. Or just, hey, you, and then
yeah.
try to
Hey
kill them.
you, and then
Yeah.
you're dead.
Yeah.
um so as far as like reproduction, quote unquote, it's pretty much the same. So it's obviously spread by ingestion of vampire blood. The difference being that in Supernatural, they do this through other means. So it's not just through direct contact with, another person's blood. It could be through a drink. So they could literally just drink it.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, I think we saw that with that in the third season. We saw a vampire who was just
Oh,
changing
yeah.
unsuspecting girls, right? All those blonde
Yes.
girls.
I forgot about
And
that one.
he was doing it through a
It was
drink or
like a date rape drug, but
yes, exactly, but it was vampire
but for
blood.
vampires. Oh.
I know. And I think he was also like injecting them like with a
Yeah.
shot or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Because they thought it was drugs. Um, so we don't really see anything like that in Buffy, but the one thing with Buffy is that although you don't need to be buried in order to reawaken as a vampire, um, we often see them rise from the grave because they've spent some time as corpses. Although this doesn't really make any sense because they're supposed to we get this confirmed, but they're supposed to reawaken as a vampire the night after the siring. So like the very next night.
So,
So
but they would have been buried for more than one. Like, yeah, that would have taken longer.
right? Like
Yeah.
people don't usually get buried like the next day.
No. No. It's
And
like
we do
sometime
some
that week or the next week.
Right. And we do see some instances where the vampire just reawakens in the morgue.
Yeah, I just saw that one.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's yeah, it's a little messy with the timeline there.
agreed.
um but we do see some vampires who prefer to bury their progeny as tradition. So even though it's not required, it might be a traditional thing to do.
Interesting. Maybe it's part of like
Yeah.
being born. It's kind of like coming through the womb.
Exactly. Yeah. There is a whole series of episodes in Angel where a vampire is being reborn, and it's like it's it's so funny. I mean, she's like buried in this dirt, and then it's just the person who made her just calls her like my daughter and my
Mm.
mother. So they use those types of words like mother,
Hmm.
grandfather even,
Whoa,
and
weird.
yeah, and I don't think that we really see that in Supernatural.
Yeah, interesting.
Um, the only differences really in their power abilities is obviously they both have strength and speed, immortality, all of that sort of thing. But on Buffy, they can have the ability to be psychic, um, just depending on the person. So, and also in two instances, Drusilla and the Master were able to hypnotize their victims.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it varies really because they are, they have some sort of special abilities, maybe because they're so old and powerful, or maybe because, like Drusilla, she was already kind of psychic when she was a human.
Yeah, she was.
Um, and
So
then
that was
I
just like
think
heightened, maybe.
yeah, and I think the funniest thing though about their powers and abilities is that in Buffy, they wake up as vampires and all of a sudden they know martial arts.
Aha. They're like really good at fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just like punches, it's like fucking somersaults and just crazy moves. It's ridiculous. But I guess because like Buffy, she's, trained in all of the martial arts, and she doesn't do fighting like Sam and Dean. It's really like hand-to-hand combat. So we need some worthy adversaries for her. Um so as far as weaknesses go, uh we learned about Dead Man's Blood, right, in that episode, which is able to incapacitate the vampire briefly, and it's supposed to be blood from a recently deceased person, and that's something that does not exist at all in Buffy. Um, Sunlight can hurt them, but not kill them in Supernatural. And then we have instances where vampires can be seriously injured, and that even though they have regenerative powers, it's just the seriousness of the injury makes it so that it takes a while for them to get better. And that's the same thing on Buffy. We have a vampire who has to be in a wheelchair for a bit because he gets so seriously injured.
Mm.
Um, and uh, in addition to like sunlight, the wooden stake, decapitation, fire, and holy items, the other thing about Buffy is that they must be invited into the home.
Yeah. Classic. That's a good one.
Is that a Buffy thing, or have you seen that
I
in
don't know.
anything
The only other
else?
place I've seen it that makes me think that it's just kind of other lore too
Uh huh.
is What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, okay.
There's this part where they're out and they're trying to go to a club and they're talking to the bouncer and they're like, please let me in.
But that's funny because like in Buffy, it's only like a private residence, so they can get in to a
To
hotel.
establishments and stuff. Yeah.
Right, right, right. They can get into like any sort of public area. But on What We Do in the Shadows, they can't like
No,
get
apparently
into the
not.
club. Oh my god, that's so funny.
Yeah,
You
it's very
must
funny.
invite me in.
Yes, you will invite me in. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Oh man. And it's actually kind of a little bit more difficult to kill a vampire in Supernatural because even though, well, I mean, there you go, sunlight doesn't work.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but in it, they can be killed, but it has to be with beheading. It has to be,
Yeah.
which is,
How could it not be?
I mean, yeah, that seems like the easiest way to go, but also like that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
Um, and when they die, they leave behind a corpse. So they leave behind a body. Um, Buffy, it's very different. They can be decapitated. They can just get a wooden stake in the heart, sunlight. But when they die, they're dusted. So they just turn to
Hmm. It's
dust.
very satisfying.
It is. It's pretty cool.
I always liked it.
And I Yeah, and I liked it because, well, and the creators liked it because they were trying to find a way, one, so that they didn't like leave all of these human bodies lying around Sunnydale,
Yeah.
where Buffy, hunts. So it was just cleaner. Like, here, she just dusts them
It makes
and she
sense.
doesn't
What is
have to
she
take
supposed
care
to
of the
do with all
body.
these bodies?
She's just like carrying them,
Yeah.
like burying them and
Back to her
shit.
lair. Like,
Yeah. Because I don't know if they say do they say on Supernatural if Sam and Dean take care of the remains at all?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. I feel like they're just leaving bodies everywhere.
I don't remember how it looked when they died.
I just remember Gordon, his like head rolled,
Yeah.
you
That
know?
was good. That was a good one.
It was. Um and so just the last few things about vampires. So we haven't learned this yet, and I won't talk about it too much, but in Supernatural, there is a very rare cure to vampirism. There is that.
Hmm.
Now, on Buffy, there's not really a cure per se, but we do learn of this gem called Gem of Amara, which can grant the wearer the ability to be human. But that vampire can just take it off and then they're done. They're back to being a vampire. So it's not like a full on cure, but there it that does exist.
That's a cool concept.
Yeah. Too bad Angel is stupid and throws it in the ocean.
Dummy.
It probably washed up ashore and then like somebody took it and was like, oh, this is a pretty
Oh, this
ring.
is funny. Yeah.
um so the only other thing is with Supernatural, and maybe we'll learn more about it, but vampires are just bloodthirsty, you know. Um we see that they have feelings, right? So that guy who was date raping the girls, he was just really lonely, right?
Like,
Um
that's an excuse. I'm just
it's
saying.
not. But
But yeah, he had feelings.
he had feelings, I guess, but twisted feelings, right?
Yeah.
But on Buffy, they, like I mentioned, they lack a human soul. So they really are dark, evil, but they do show love. They do show true love. And this is most exemplified by Spike, best character ever,
Love Spike.
who I love him so much. And he loves, he really loves. But also it may be because the way he was as a human kind of informed the way he was as a vampire. So as a human, he had so much love in himself. He was a poet, all of this stuff about him.
Hmm.
And so that kind of still shows. And so we do see that the way a person is as a human can inform the way they'll be as a vampire, either by being a more exaggerated form of themselves or maybe just like the complete opposite or something. They still remember the feelings they had as a human, and that kind of changes them a bit. Yeah. So that was a lot, but I promise, the vampire one was just it's just a lot. It's just a lot of information.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with everything we know about vampires and Buffy, it spans that 7 seasons. We get
Yeah,
constant vampire stuff, and it's a lot.
all the vampires.
Literally all of
So,
them.
what do you have?
Okay, so I've got witches. Let's start with witches first. Um, and this was interesting because I still don't know, obviously, a whole lot about them in Supernatural. Trying to keep, any spoilers to a minimum, and so far, so good. But it is just interesting learning about the creatures. There's a lot more to them in Supernatural than I thought there was. For example, there are classifications.
Oh,
Yeah, there are
hmm.
3 classifications. One is the borrowers, used to define any witch who has obtained their power through demonic forces. Um,
Oh, kind of like our witch club in
yeah,
that one episode.
yeah. Then there's the naturals, used to define any witch who has obtained their power from biological development. And
Mm.
then the students, used to define any witch who has obtained their power through practice and training. Then there are apparently some witches, some characters who fall into like an unknown classification. Um, but those are the main ones, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So then there aren't those classifications in Buffy, by the way. It's kind of like a witch is a witch.
Hmm.
And in Buffy, so let's see. We've got that the origin is unknown. It was likely that witches had existed at least since the beginning of humanity, passing down their knowledge and skills through generations of family lines. But then it also says that there are some witches who don't have those family lines and they're able to perform magic just as well as someone who does have it through family lines.
Hey,
Um,
Willow.
like Willow.
Yeah. Badass witch.
Yeah, and she just did it.
Yeah.
She didn't like learn it from mom.
No.
So, and then the origins in Supernatural. Let me see. Actually, what I found didn't really touch on the origins. It just kind of describes what it is. So, witchcraft in Supernatural is a practice of magic. It encompasses many different types of magic, like divination, spellcasting, and spirit communication. And it spans different cultures and is in a lot of different religions from ancient times. Um, so we've got like hoodoo and voodoo and Wicca. So it's just this like all encompassing thing that's like a worldwide ancient thing.
Yeah. Huh.
Mm-hmm. Um, so let's see here.
I think
I
Buffy's
wanted
a little
to.
bit more gentrified as far as the witchcraft goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was like interesting things that I did a little bit of research just in like watching a couple of episodes of Buffy that Kristen suggested that would have good information on these creatures. So the episode of Buffy that I watched um, just opened up all of these weird things that we don't see from the witches in Supernatural. Like the witch in Buffy used kind of like, and she didn't call it that, but it's kind of like voodoo dolls. She had Barbie dolls that were used to like demonstrate what she wanted to have done to the person that she was casting a spell on.
Yeah.
So, and then they just like hung out. She kept them, they were like hanging on a rack in her witch
But they
room.
don't call it that.
No.
They didn't say like, "Oh, I'm doing voodoo" or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Uh huh.
So they just adopted those and uh appropriated them
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Essentially. Uh huh. And there was the use of a cauldron, which we haven't really seen in Supernatural. Like they use
Right.
hex bags and things like that. But
Mhm.
this was very typical, like cauldron filled with bubbling green liquid that you drop the voodoo doll into.
I think there was green liquid
It
too,
was
right?
totally
Like
green, bright green.
oh man.
Another really interesting thing in Buffy is that witches can body switch. So this is apparently like one of the spells that they can cast. And I don't know yet if this is something that can be done in Supernatural. What I was reading about it didn't address this specifically, but I assume not if we just don't see it.
No, I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah.
But it's crazy. Like in the episode of Buffy, the witch is a mother who has switched places with her daughter. She's like switched her body with her daughters so that she can go back and be the best cheerleader ever. Um,
Yeah.
but that concept was just very interesting and seems like a big deal. It's not just casting a spell on somebody, it's switching consciousness
Yeah.
in a body.
It's pretty heavy stuff. And it was interesting because I started rewatching Buffy also recently, and I was watching that episode and it just dawned on me like how much power she has. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot to be able to enable that kind of spell. Um,
She's scary.
and she is scary. And we see like she's so powerful that she gets like these black eyes, almost kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
demons in Supernatural.
Yeah, that was
And we
cool.
only ever see one other character. I don't know if we want to spoil anything, but we only ever see one other character in one other witch in Buffy get those black eyes when she's at full power. And so it's like, oh whoa, I never made that connection before between that season 1 thing and the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I should have mentioned too, as far as the origin of witches and Buffy, they get their source of magic from the seed of wonder. Um, so this little paragraph talks about it. Between the destruction and restoration of the seed, they were forced to draw upon magic stored in magical objects before its destruction. And then later, somebody else, if anyone wants to watch this and have me not spoil it, but somebody figures out a way for them to draw magic just within themselves and not from the seed, but that's still where
Mm.
it originated, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
And then witchcraft in Buffy is not just practiced by humans, it's also practiced by demons and vampires at times.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Although Spike hates magic. So he's always like, no, keep that shit away from me.
Get it away.
Yeah.
Um, they have a lot of different powers. I was surprised by this list of all the powers in Supernatural. But then also thinking about the witches in Buffy, they have a very wide array of spells that they can cast. If they have those powers, they can do a lot of different things. So probably even more than just in the Supernatural universe, because this is just kind of a list.
Yeah.
But things like telekinesis, hexing and cursing, conjuration,
Hmm.
um, teleportation, electrokinesis, mind control, things like that.
I wonder if you found because I know in Buffy, even though there are instances where like for example, there's a spell that happens in season 6 where the witch she's calling on Osiris,
Mm-hmm.
but like we never actually see Osiris or anything like that. Like I'm not really sure if it's a true entity that she's calling on or if it's just part of the spell. But in Supernatural, it seems like because there's the whole demon aspect, um, that they really do need to draw from some sort of source. Or did you see that is that only with the borrowers?
Um, so I don't even know that it's with the borrowers. Let me see.
Because I don't know if it was
Because I
like
think the borrowers, it's not like they're really drawing on that. It's like they've made a deal with a demon in exchange for power. So then they just
ah,
have that power, but it doesn't really describe like the source of it.
Yeah, they're not like going, because I think the demon was Tammy. They're not going like, "Oh, Tammy, please grant this spell or whatever."
Right. Oh, great,
Right.
Tammy. Yeah, it's just like they've been gifted the power, I guess.
I see.
Uh-huh. Um, so in Buffy, talking about their powers, witches can have powers that are not just mystical, but also psychic. Um, Tara had the ability to perceive energy fields, and there was another powerful witch that was considered a seer. So they have different kinds of power too. It's not just casting spells or whatever is through that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, Tara's interesting because she is like her mom was a witch, I think. So she's like in tune with like all of these different aspects of herself, and she's kind of like almost like a medium in the real world, right? Where she
yeah.
like can sense yeah, like kind of like you said, the psychic energy of someone.
Mm-hmm.
Um and can just like she's just very empathetic also,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, she is very in tune with everything. She's very hippy dippy, but it's sweet.
Yeah, she's very Wicca.
Yeah. So it doesn't say that this is specifically a thing in Supernatural. It might just be Buffy, but they can also strengthen the power of their spells and whatever they're doing by having more of them. Strengthen numbers. So witches
Hmm.
can get together and do a lot in Buffy.
Yeah.
Um, so we've got a list of uh, weaknesses in Supernatural, which is interesting. Iron is one of their weaknesses. There's apparently a witch catcher. It's like a collar that you can put on a witch.
Shit.
Yeah. I know. Fire, magic. They're like certain spells and things.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and then also the fact that witches are still human, basically. They're mortals.
Yeah.
So any of those things like decapitation, sickness.
Right. Car crash.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Getting hit by a car or something. And that's how it is in Buffy too. Like since they're basically still human, you can just kill them that
Hmm.
way.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I had for witches. I think there's probably
Yeah.
more that you could get into as far as the classifications and things in Supernatural, but
Mhm.
there's your overview.
Yeah, I think the only other thing is in Buffy, when a certain witch was coming into her own with all her witchy powers, it was also serving as a metaphor for uh being gay. Um
Mm-hmm.
she was also coming to terms with being discovering that she was a lesbian.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's a really interesting way to like Buffy is it's all about metaphors. I mean, basically the idea of Buffy is like high school is hell. Like that's the idea of like,
The whole
but
thing.
literally, right? um, that's the concept of the first three seasons, and so like they use metaphors like that a lot, and and spell work between this witch and like her lover is basically supposed to signify sex and stuff
Mm,
like that.
yeah.
And it's beautiful. I mean, when we do see it, it really is. Um,
Agreed.
but I always thought that was very interesting.
That is
Um,
interesting. I like that. I love Willow.
I know, go girl. Um, so I have demons, and you know, we could go on about demons. I don't have a lot about it though, just because we know so much already in Supernatural. Um, and with Buffy, we could be here forever talking about every kind of demon there is. Um, but totally, you know, vampires kind of similar. across the two shows, demons, totally different beings. So in Supernatural, we see that they are truly from hell. They're the types of demons that we kind of think of immediately off the top of our heads. And as far as appearance, they possess human hosts, so they look just like human when we see them here on Earth. But of course, they're supposed to be like distorted and ugly looking, according to Dean, in their truest form. But we don't really know what that actually looks like. They usually manifest as black smoke before they possess someone, and they prefer to dress in formal wear. They have a very specific
They're stylish.
style, right? Buffy, totally different thing that we're talking about. Demons come in a variety of shapes and forms, literally hundreds of species with diverse traits. And it's interesting because they really do treat each demon as a totally different species, and with its own history, with its own language, even with its own civilization or cultural ideas. I really love Angel so much because they really expand on this, but we see demons in Angel that are, it's a gray area. They may eat babies, but hey, it's part of their culture,
And they have a great sense of humor.
Exactly, right? And
like they're
and they
really
know how to,
likable.
yeah. um but most demons are, they walk on 2 feet and they're kind of humanoid, but they have like reptilian features or just like claws or horns, but they just talk normally, just like normal people.
Lauren
um
Green is the best.
exactly. I mean, there
He
you
was
go.
my fave.
Yeah. And his real name, though, I had to call it out, is Krevlorn Swath of the Deathwalk clan. But Lorne for short.
So
um
funny.
and that is another thing, is that demons in the Buffy verse can be good, you know. They're not inherently evil like we see in Supernatural. Um Although Ruby is the main one who's kind of different. But Lauren is just, I mean, he's just a different type of dude, you know?
He is a different
Um,
type of dude.
yeah, it's not his fault he was born that way. So
No. And his name is after that Bonanza actor, right? It was like a
no,
reference. His name is it's an actor. Like a famous
Lauren
Lauren Green.
specifically. Oh, Lauren Green.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So funny.
I
He's charming.
know. He's very charming, and he sings. He loves karaoke. um so as far as origin, in Supernatural, we're learning all about it, right? There was the Garden of Eden. Lilith was tempted. It corrupted her soul. She became a demon. I'm not going to get too much into it because we're going to learn so much more in the next seasons. But there are other demons that have been created specifically by Lucifer, um, that are known as the princes of hell and the knights of hell. So they have rank in hell. And there's some special demons that we're going to encounter.
That's cool.
Yeah. Buffy, again, origin. It's every demon might have a different creation story, so it's totally different. The same with diet. I mean, I don't think that demons in the Supernatural universe really have a diet. They don't really eat.
Yeah, it seems like they don't need to eat.
Yeah, they eat souls, maybe. I don't know.
Although Ruby really likes French fries.
She does. She really does.
So,
yeah,
can't blame her.
maybe a diet of French fries. Um, but on Buffy, I mean, again, it could be anything. It could be for religious reasons, cultural reasons. We've seen demons who eat nothing but brains. You know, whatever it might be. Um, there is a very strict hierarchy in Supernatural, right? So there's Lucifer at the very top, and then we got the Princes of Hell and Knights of Hell, like I mentioned, and then we also have like demons who rank up. So instead of just the black-eyed demons, we have our white-eyed demons, which we've seen are Lilith, Alistair, who we just met. Um, Super old, powerful, and they just pull rank in hell. Um and again, it can vary for Buffy. Um Reproduction. So for Supernatural, it's the result of human souls going to hell and being tortured until no humanity is left in them. So they used to be human.
That's fucked up.
I know.
Wait.
Or
No, never mind.
what were you thinking?
Nothing.
Okay. I was just curious.
I mean, I think I've debunked my own thought. But I had a thought that Dean being tortured turned him into a demon. But I don't know, because an angel pulled him out.
Yeah. And he wouldn't pull out a demon, I guess. But I like what was about to become a prophecy.
Yeah. It was close. It was really close.
Yeah. But also it could be souls that have been collected as in the witches, right? So Tammy just collected those souls, and they eventually would become demons. Ruby was a case, right? She used to be a witch. Or it could be a crossroads demon that collected the soul, and somehow that soul became a demon. As far as reproduction on the Buffy side, I mean, this is like a species. So we're talking like whatever sexual intercourse that demon needs to have to be reproducing little baby demons. We do see children demons and baby demons here and there. And but there's also like vengeance demons, for example. So a vengeance demon is created when it's usually a woman, but a powerful witch is exhibiting powerful magics, and specifically powerful magics taking revenge against some sort of wrong done to them. And so a demon will appear, and he will sort of employ them, turn them into a demon, and their job is then to grant wishes to people who have been wronged.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So one of my favorite characters is a vengeance demon, and she's she's a fun character.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. We also have half-breeds. So I don't know what that kind of sexual intercourse is like, but we do see Whistler.
It's gotta be
Yeah,
interesting.
it's gotta be very interesting. Probably kind of like how Hagrid came to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Can we talk about that sometime? What the
How
fuck?
did that happen? I have no idea. That's a little scary. But we have half breeds like Whistler, Doyle, and Gooselug. The last two being an angel, and they are half human, half demon. But they're not vampires. They're their own sort of thing. Um, and they can exhibit their demonic abilities whenever they like to. So just to wrap it up, I mean, demons just have all sorts of powers on the Buffy end. Um, On Supernatural, though, they're very specific: possession, electromagnetic interference, immortality, superhuman strength, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But they can gain more power by moving up ranks, or just by getting old and stuff, right?
Yeah. Tenure.
Yeah, exactly. But with Buffy, it's like, okay, maybe we have a water demon and they specifically shoot water. It's like it's very specific to what kind of demon they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes the same with weaknesses, of course, and deaths. But with Supernatural, it's very specific. Sulfur, as a detector, Devil's Trap, Exorcism, Holy Water, Salt, Iron, and then Palo Santo. And there's a few others. But Death, uh, it's all about that cult, baby. Because an exorcism is just going to get you back down into hell. But the cult is so far the only thing that we've seen that really kills a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and the last thing that I'll say about that is we do in the future see a cure for demons in Supernatural. So
Interesting.
there is a possibility to cure someone. And that kind of makes sense because it's like it's a human being, right? That's been turned into a demon. It's whereas in Buffy, I mean that's just they were born like that,
Right.
Cue the Lady Gaga. That's who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Ready to talk about werewolves?
Yeah.
So I can say that on the whole, they're very similar between the two. The look is different. The werewolves in Buffy look like a typical like wolfman werewolf,
Yeah. They
like
but it's
covered in
not
fur.
cool.
No, it's lame.
It's very, very lame. They did not have any budget for that werewolf costume.
No, it probably was the wolfman costume, and they just
Repurposed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then the werewolves in Supernatural basically look like humans. They just have different characteristics, like fangs. The face kind of changes, but overall, they're humanoid. Um, and the origin is a little different because I couldn't really find an origin for the supernatural werewolves, but we know that they turn into werewolves by becoming bitten. Um, Not all of them survive being bitten, but
Hmm.
yeah, but the ones who do become werewolves. And then in Buffy, it's the same thing. They become a werewolf if they're bitten by another werewolf and survived. And it doesn't matter if the original werewolf was transformed or not at the moment that they bit the new person. And scratches don't change them either. It's just the biting.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't pass down through families. Um,
Oh, that's an interesting.
yeah.
Have you seen any shows? I can't think of any shows where that
Where
happens.
it would
But
pass
that's
down through a family.
yeah, but that would be really interesting.
Harry Potter.
Duh. So sorry.
But that's not really a show. It was movies. I was just throwing something out there that's a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's true.
But he didn't become one, right?
No, it was just a chance, right? Kind of
Yeah.
like, will
Lupin
I
thought
get a
that he was
redheaded baby or not?
right.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Get a
Redheaded
redhead.
baby.
Yeah.
You'd just love to have a ginger baby.
I would love it.
So there's a lot to the characteristics in Buffy as far as what's explained. They have a very highly developed sense of smell, as you would imagine, for tracking. They could perceive the presence of other werewolves. And let's see. They had memory issues right after they were bitten. So the traumatic experience of the transformation caused the werewolf to lose their memory of it. So they get bitten and they change, and then they have no memory of that happening,
Hmm.
which is why Oz was so confused.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all, but I remember him being like, "Why am I a werewolf?" And
It was actually really funny. Like, I thought it was kind of hokey, but there's this scene of him waking up in the forest and he transforms from a werewolf back into a human, and then he wakes up and he sits up and he's naked. And he just kind of sits there and looks around and he's like, huh.
yeah, like what just happened?
Yeah. That was weird.
uh He's and werewolves in the Buffyverse are constantly naked.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, it seems that way. So poor Oz is going to have to be naked a lot.
Yeah.
um, isn't a thing in Buffy, but in Supernatural, there are different types of werewolves. We have regular ones that turn into a werewolf during nights that coincide with the lunar cycle. And then there are pureblood werewolves. And um, the description, I don't fully understand it, but it says that they're closer to the alpha up to the fourth generation, and they're referred to as purebloods. This is, I guess,
Wow.
part of their, rank, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I think it's different, but like I know in Harry Potter, um, Fenrir. Well, I don't know if he's able to just like change at will necessarily, but he
He's
he
always
just
disgusting.
yeah, he's always kind of like werewolfish,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
But that's his choice, I guess.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like he had cultivated that.
Yes. Yeah, he kind of trained it out of him.
Mm-hmm. And also the pureblood werewolves in Supernatural can change whenever they want.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. In Supernatural, they always eat the heart. And that was the characteristic that I wanted to find earlier.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So that explains, in monster movie, when they were catching on to the fact that these weren't real monsters, the heart was still
Mhm.
there, and they were like, wait a second.
Right.
Um, so let's see. There's a lot of information about pureblood werewolves versus regular werewolves. I'm not going to get into all of it, but we apparently learn a lot about their history throughout Supernatural. Um, but it's just kind of like with pureblood werewolves, there's more of a generational thing. So that like hierarchy in their family history is more
Mhm.
important.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I like
Um,
that.
yeah, it was interesting. Uh, as far as powers and abilities, in Supernatural, they can shapeshift. The Skinwalkers are supposedly their like cousins,
Oh. Oh
so
shit.
they're related.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense because I mean they're kind of doing the same thing, but
Yeah, shapeshifting
right.
essentially.
Yeah.
Um, and they have an infectious bite. Um, they have obviously their claws and fangs as like their weapons. They have super strength and super speed and senses. Um, and they can regenerate, which is also skinwalkery.
Mhm.
And they're supposedly immortal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I guess yeah, we don't like the werewolves we've seen so far, we don't really get that chance because it's like, okay, Madison, you got to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Then we get into weaknesses. In Supernatural, it's Silver, Angel Blades, the cult, um, something called Vamptonite. I don't know about that yet.
Don't know what that is.
That's a thing.
Hmm.
Dismemberment. Angels can easily kill them, apparently. I don't know if there's a time that they get together, but this is, again, listed. Um,
I feel like
and
angels can kill anything though.
yeah,
Like,
probably, because they're angels.
yeah.
Decapitation and sulfate gas is fatal to werewolves.
Interesting.
Yeah. So in Buffy, it's also silver. That's the most effective way to kill them. In the episode that I watched where Oz discovered that he was a werewolf, there was a guy who was a hunter and he had killed multiple werewolves and he would make his own silver bullets.
Mm. And isn't it interesting that like the one hunter we do see in Buffy is such a bad dude.
Yeah.
He's a
He's
fucking
such a
asshole.
dick. He's
Yeah.
huge dick. He's just very, like, in addition to hunting werewolves and just being an asshole, he's like super condescending to Buffy and like very sexist.
Yes, extremely.
Very, very sexist.
But he's kind of painted like a poacher, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like he's just poaching werewolves.
Yeah. He's got like a
He's
necklace of their talons or something.
yes, it's just a game to him. Um whereas we don't our hunters are not like that.
No. And then in Buffy, they can also be killed by just having a bad enough injury. There's a time where Oz kills another werewolf by ripping into her throat. Um, some of them have died from like regular bullet wounds, but just a ton of them in their
Mhm.
chest. So if they're injured badly enough, they're also still an animal, so they can die that way.
Yeah. And they are still, I mean, they are still human most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're usually vulnerable at that point. Just
Yeah.
like Madison. She got
Yeah.
shot. Oh.
I know. Um, so in Buffy, it's not possible to cure werewolfness. All you have to do, or all you can do, is ride it out. Try to find a way to minimize any damage you may do or
Mm-hmm.
anything, just to get through that time of the month.
Yeah.
Um, and also, the Buffy version, did I mention that they don't abide by the full moon theory? So there were the two different kinds of the werewolves in Supernatural, where one does abide by that theory, and the other one
Mm-hmm.
can just switch whenever they want. And the one in Buffy is just not on that calendar.
Yeah, they actually have it's sort of like they abide by it, but they change within the 3 days, I think it is,
Mm-hmm.
of the full moon.
Right. So it's not like
So,
the one night
right,
of
it's
the
not
full
that.
moon.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Um but Oz, even though there's no cure, he does, search. I don't know. He pulls like a Bruce Wayne, and he
Yeah.
goes to like
Or a
Timbuktu.
Doctor Strange.
Exactly.
He goes to like fucking Tibet.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he does go to
I
Tibet or
think that's what this
something.
said.
And he figures out that he can just by meditation, right? Or something.
Yeah,
By
kind of like suppress it, I guess.
yes. And he can stop himself from changing, but also it kind of forces him to use his anger to change instead, so he can now change during daylight, um or when it's not otherwise a full moon. So it has some back drawbacks, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm. Um, and apparently there is a cure in Supernatural. Um, it says the British men of letters came up with a cure that worked on 1 out of 9 mice test subjects. So
Whoever they are.
I have no fucking clue. It sounds like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get there.
It sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are our werewolves in a
Man.
nutshell.
Yeah. Look terrible on both shows, but
Yeah. Yeah, I really could I could deal with the supernatural version more just because they didn't try to do a ton of makeup and it was fine. Like,
mhm.
it's just easier to, I don't know, handle
Yeah.
than the huge furry wolf costume.
Yeah, that furry costume just looks ridiculous. It really
It's
does.
pretty bad.
I think that's why like following Supernatural at least, every other show that I've seen werewolves on just goes for the it's just a wolf. It's just a giant wolf.
Yep.
That kind of looks better, I
Hmm.
guess. Uh
It's
I think
sad.
so too. Yeah. So there you have it. I mean, it's a lot of, as you can see, it's a lot of differences, but some similarities. And just, I mean, so it's kind of interesting, like coming from, you know, different shows, even not just Buffy, but other types of lore. It's like you're just relearning the lore all over again with Supernatural because they really have specific stuff in there. They're really painting their own universe.
Yeah, and it struck me too that since it's been on for so many seasons, they've had a lot of time to build that. Um,
Hmm.
it's even so much longer than Buffy, and they had a pretty rich background for a lot of their creatures and characters,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, they did.
Supernatural's just been able to go crazy with it.
Yeah, and the one thing that I really, well, one of the many things that I love about Supernatural is that they really focus in on specific creatures. So like we're seeing a lot of demons, we're seeing a lot of angels, and then that gives them the ability to grow on that.
Hmm.
Whereas with Buffy, like, you know, the demons kind of serve as monster of the weeks,
Hmm.
monsters. And even then, like, we could have the opening scene being Buffy killing a demon, and we never talk about that demon again. So like we don't get to learn everything about those specific demons all the time.
Yeah.
um so we're not as like, you know, immersed into the world as we might want to be, you know.
Hmm.
um yeah, because it's always changing.
Makes
But
sense.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this very first SPN Buffy episode. Yeah, we'll have more in between our SPN fandom episodes, and I'm excited to talk about some of them. I did think one of the ones that we have to do is which has the worst episode.
Oh no.
It might be like Bugs versus Beer Bad or
Yeah,
something.
they're gonna be really bad.
Yes. And Bugs is pretty bad. So, well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be fun to rewatch those terrible episodes and compare.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed.
Hmm. Bye.
Bye.